Welcome back to my channel. In this video, I'm going to give you the answers, the responses to the top 5 cold calling objections. So when I say cold calling, they could come from an expired listing, a for sale by owner, or even if you're calling around the neighborhood, circle prospecting. The first one that I wrote down is, I have a friend in real estate. Let's face it, I mean, this is probably one of the most common objections. Who doesn't have a friend in real estate or several friends in real estate, right? So I'm going to do this in the form of a role play. Obviously, I'm going to role play with myself. And then at the end, if there's something to add, I'll add for you, okay? So when they say, well, thanks, I'm interested in selling, but I have a friend that I will list with when I'm ready. My response is, oh, I completely understand. And by the way, Mr. Seller, obviously I don't know who your friend is, and I'm sure that he or she is a good agent, because you wouldn't just list with them because they're a friend. You want to make sure that they're going to do a good job, and I'm sure they would. And let me ask you, Mr. Seller, say their name. If there was a significant advantage for you to work with someone other than your friend, is that something that you might consider? Notice the tone with which I say. They could very well say, well, I guess if there was a significant advantage, I'd consider. Very easy for them to say yes to. But let's say they say, well, sounds interesting, but quite honestly, it's a friend and I feel obligated to use them. I already told them that I would. They have that commitment thing going on. So I would say, and Mr. Stellar, again, I completely understand that. I can only hope that my friends are as committed to working with me as you are. And at the same time, Mr. Seller, do you consider the sale of your home to be a business transaction for you? They're going to say yes. And so, with that in mind, Mr. Seller, I'm sure you want to make sure that you do your very best financially in the sale of your home. After all, it's probably one of your biggest investments, isn't it? Well, yeah, of course it is. And so here's what I propose, Mr. Seller, and you're under no obligation. I'd like to come by and meet with you for just 20 minutes and show you what I do differently to get property sold for top market price. And then, hey, at the end of our meeting, you decide what's best for yourself. And Mr. Seller, I'm really clear that if by the end of our meeting you feel that your friend and I are equal, about the same, of course you're going to list with your friend for me to even have the slightest chance of working with you. I'd have to be considerably better in your opinion, right? And they're going to say, yeah, that's right. And then I say, Mr. Seller, I look forward to our meeting. Would 3 o'clock work for you for 20 minutes today, or would 4 be better? Just like that. And I want you to rewind, transcribe, and use this dialogue in the sequence that I gave it to you here, because there's continuation. One thing builds upon another. What I said, how I said it, all the tie downs that I use, the tonality, all of that is critical for you to actually set appointments and be able to overcome objections. So the second one I wrote down is, I'm going to list with a neighborhood specialist. So they say that, and I'm going to respond and say, and Mr. Seller, I hear what you're saying, and I understand why you're thinking, that makes sense, because obviously if they are specialized, they specialize in your neighborhood, they have buyers that are looking to buy in your area, and you think that would be an advantage for you, right? They're going to say, yeah, that's right. No, I completely understand. And Mr. Seller, let me just ask you this question. If I can show you why working with a neighborhood specialist can actually end up costing you money. Would you be interested in looking at a different option? Now, when you use this question the way I said it, how it's going to cost them money. I mean, my goal is always to not handle objections over the phone, but obviously sometimes you might have to. So if they say, well, what do you mean by that? How is it going to cost me money? Here's what you would say. You'd say, well, Mr. Seller, I want you to consider this. A buyer that is already looking to buy in your area, they're not only going to look at your home if you're listed with the neighborhood specialist. I mean, think about it. When you're buying a home, when you buy your next home, you wouldn't just look at properties that are listed with a certain agent. I mean, once you choose the area you're going to buy in, you're going to look at all of the properties that fit your criteria and your price range, regardless of who the agent is, right? So see, the advantage for you in working with an agent like myself is I don't specialize in your area or any other area. I specialize in selling homes in the greater Miami area. I'm in Miami. You use your city, right? In Miami, in the greater Miami area. And the advantage for you, Mr. Seller, is I'm not going to be limited to only the buyers that have already decided to buy in your area. I'm going to bring buyers to your home that are looking all over Miami because, and that's very common, that a buyer sees a property in a certain area that they call on or seems interesting to them, and they don't end up buying that property for whatever reason. And a great agent that works an expanded area can say to that buyer, whoa, let me show you what you can buy in this neighborhood over here, and bring them from, they may not even know your area existed. I could be bringing them from 30 minutes or 40 minutes away. See, Mr. Seller, I cross sell, which is gonna increase the demand for your property. And the more demand that we can create, the higher the price that you're gonna be able to sell it for. Why don't we do this, Mr. Seller? Let me come by and meet with you for just 20 minutes, and I'll share with you in detail how I'm going to market your home aggressively so we can sell it for the most money possible, because ultimately that's what you want, isn't it? Well, yes, it is. Great. Well, it'll be a good time for me to come by. I have an opening today at 3. Would 4 be better? There you have it. And this dialogue that I gave you, I want you to think about it. You know, this actually just came to my mind when I was selling real estate. This was, I think it was an expired listing, yes, that I called. And they told me, we already chose an agent. And I said, oh, okay. I kept asking questions who the agent is. And they said, oh, my brother, it was a lady, my brother-in-law is an appraiser. And they recommended an agent who specializes in our neighborhood. It was this objection. I handled it the way that I just said to you. I wasn't able to set an appointment on that call, but I asked who the agent was, the name of the agent, before I hung up. And then I went in the MLS and I looked up that agent, and the agent had sold like 3 homes in that particular neighborhood. So they call it a neighborhood specialist. I was selling homes all over the area. I was selling 120 homes a year. And I had sold more homes in that area, even though I didn't specialize in that area, but I had sold more homes than that agent who they were told was an area specialist. I called her back. I shared that information with her. I got an appointment same day. I called her back like an hour later. I got the appointment and I actually took the listing and it sold. So I know for a fact, I mean, this is just one that comes to my mind. This stuff works when you use it correctly. The next one I wrote down is, I'm going to sell it myself. Obviously, if it's a FSBO, they're selling it themselves. Sometimes an expired, since the house didn't sell, like, well, I might as well sell it myself. I don't want to list with an agent again and not have it sold. And even calling a neighborhood, somebody could say that to you. Okay, so I'm going to sell it myself. the first thing you do is always repeat and approve. Never make them wrong. Don't ever say to them, well, that's not a good idea. You're not going to win that one, okay? So when they say I'm going to sell it myself, I'll say, and if it's a FSBO, obviously it's the same, but it's just the introduction here is a little different. You would say, and Mr. Seller, by the way, I understand why you're thinking of selling yourself. If it's a FSBO, why you're selling it yourself. And quite honestly, I have no doubt that you can sell it on your own. And at the same time, Mr. Seller, if there was a financial benefit for you to work with me instead of selling it yourself, is that something that you'd be interested in looking at? Listen, I mean, any logical person would say, well, if there was a financial benefit, I guess I'd be open to hearing about it. Or they may say over the phone, well, I don't see how that can happen. If they say that, well, I don't see how it could happen, you respond like this. You say, and Mr. Seller, I understand where you're coming from. I mean, the math is not adding up in your mind. You're thinking, wait a minute, how do I hire you and pay you a commission, and how is that going to benefit me financially? And that's exactly why I'd like to meet with you for just 20 minutes. And I'll show you how and why I'd be able to actually make you money by working with me instead of selling it yourself. Would you have 20 minutes available around 3 o'clock today? Would 4 be better? That's how you do it. It works. It's logical. It's easy for them to say yes. They're really not committing to, sure, come over, I'll list with you. That's not what they're saying. That's not what you're asking. Would you consider, would you be interested in looking at it? People are like, sure, it's worth 20 minutes. Easy for them to say yes to. The next one I wrote down is, what's your commission? Oh, is that a common objection from everyone? Now, you don't handle commission objection over the phone. You don't, because commission is about value. Okay? I love this example. If I say to you, I just bought a brand new car and I paid $50,000 for it. Did I make a good deal? You're gonna look at me and say, well, I don't know, what kind of car did you buy? Right? It depends on what is it that what's the value here of what we're talking about? So if I bought a car that's 30 years old and it's falling apart, clearly I overpaid. If I bought a brand new Ferrari, well, then I got a great deal. Commission is like that. And I want you to pay attention to this. When you're at a listing presentation, they're going to pay for value. If they don't see the value in the percent of commission you charge, well, they're not going to pay for it. So it's really all about that. On the phone, you don't handle the commission objection because there's no way that they could understand and see the value in what you do without you actually meeting with them and doing a presentation. So over the phone, your job is to diffuse this objection. And how you do that is you just say to them, Mr. Seller, that is a great question. And obviously, I understand that the commission you pay is important because clearly it's going to make a difference in how much you end up with. And I completely agree and I understand. And Mr. Seller, we'll discuss this in detail during our meeting because ultimately the commission is going to be whatever you and I agree upon. So I can come by around 3 o'clock, or would 4 be better for you? There's different ways of doing this if they still are pressing you on it. But I want you to use this and say it with confidence, authority, conviction, and you will see that it works. And the last one I wrote down, common objection, no matter who you're cold calling, Can you sell it for 500,000? I just put a number here. Obviously, you know, they give you a number. Can you sell it for 500,000 and you know that it's worth 400? Now, most of the time when a seller says, "Can you get me X amount of money?" I mean, when I was selling real estate, I had no clue. It's like, you know, I don't have, unless I know the neighborhood really well, which was not the case for me because I was selling all over the place. I'm prospecting all over the place. So I don't know. And I think maybe that's part of the reason why I learned to handle this objection the way that I'm going to give it to you right now. First of all, you don't want to discuss price over the phone. You don't want to get, it's a rabbit hole. Okay, if you start, well, it's gonna be bad. Okay, so don't do that. So what you want to do instead is you're gonna say, "Mr. Seller, obviously I understand that selling this home for the most money possible is very important for you, and I can assure you that is my goal in working with you. And when we meet, after I prepare a detailed market analysis, we'll look at your home together and we'll determine what is the highest price that we can sell it for in today's market." Because ultimately, that's what you want, isn't it? Yeah, that's what I want. Great. What would be a good time for me to come by? I have an opening today at 3 o'clock, or would 4 be better? There you have it. It is as simple as that. I trust this video was helpful for you. Put your questions and comments below. Thanks for watching. I will see you soon.